Several states, more than 24 twisters in 24 hours. In Atlanta, the sirens. The system stretching from the south to the northeast. Also, the state of emergency at this hour, 7 dead, the wildfires out of control. Fueled by the winds, families racing to get out. Breaking developments in the plane crash tonight, what we have just learned, what the pilot said moments before the crash. Inside the meeting, the dinner with President-elect Donald Trump and Mitt Romney. And we have new reporting tonight, the post that could be given to Sarah Palin. The house explosion, the mother of 3, the family dog, crawling out from the debris. And an ABC News exclusive tonight, the mystery mom who vanished, the husband breaking his silence right here, revealing what happened to her.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening on this Wednesday night, and we begin with those tornado sirens ringing out across several states. Real concerns late today. We would see even more, and difficult weather into the night. These twisters have been deadly. More than 24 reported tornadoes from Louisiana to Tennessee. Many striking as people slept. Those who were awake sharing their stories now of racing into shelters. One of those tornadoes leveling parts of Wjla, Alabama, including a daycare center where families had taken shelter. Tonight, this system reaching all the way up to the northeast, and we begin here with ABC's Philip Mena in Alabama.
Tornado warning.
Tonight, a full-on tornado outbreak is hammering the south. This massive funnel cloud caught north of Miramar Beach, Florida. Waterspouts crashing ashore. In Atlanta, tornado sirens sound the alarm as residents shelter in place.
You need to seek shelter immediately.
This after more than 24 reported twisters overnight.
It looks like a war zone up here.
Residents emerged from storm shelters to utter destruction.
The damage here is absolutely awful.
At least 3 killed in the town of Wjla, Alabama. The tornado, a massive EF2, wind speeds over 110 miles an hour. This daycare in Flat Rock flattened. You can see the toys among the wreckage. 3 adults and 3 children who took shelter here seriously injured. The storm's cutting a deadly path from Mississippi.
We're really lucky that nobody was hurt here tonight. It could be the other way.
To Tennessee, where 2 more people were killed in the storm as they still deal with raging wildfires.
David, this debris and the foundation is all that is left of this daycare center. Neighbors telling us this was one of the few places that they could take shelter when the storm hit. Tonight, residents here are still shell-shocked. David?
Philip Mena leading us up. Phil, thank you. And as these deadly tornadoes move through, another disaster playing out at incredible speed tonight. Several major wildfires out of control. The death toll late today rising to 7 now. Thousands of families and tourists racing to get out. But these fires have been moving so fast, the families found themselves surrounded by flames. ABC's Lindsay Janis now from Tennessee.
Tonight, those heavy rains are helping, but high winds sparked at least 8 new fires in the Great Smoky Mountains. These firefighters taking their first break in 30 hours.
They've not wavered. Even the ones that's lost everything.
Why is every cabin on fire?
The death toll rising. Now at least 7 killed since the fires exploded Sunday night, forcing thousands to flee for their lives.
Go, go, go.
It appears to be human caused.
Several still missing. Michael Reed is searching for his wife and daughter.
I told her to call 911 and I haven't heard from her since.
Reality setting in as displaced residents survey the damage.
Everything's gone.
We went with Travis Cogdill as he got a first look at his parents' home of 43 years.
The kitchen table was right there.
The rubble still too hot to search for his father's Purple Heart.
Fire can't take memories, and so we still got those.
David, more than 700 buildings have been damaged or destroyed. All that's left of this home is the chimney, and many of these homeowners don't have fire insurance. This could not have happened at a worse time with the holidays just weeks away. David?
All right, Lindsay Janis, thank you. On the fires, the tornadoes, and as I mentioned, this system reaching all the way up to the northeast. Difficult driving along the I-95 corridor right at the rush hour tonight. So let's get right to meteorologist Rob Marciano tracking it all for us. Hey, Rob.
Hi, Dave. Another day here in the northeast of soaking rain, but the rough stuff is in the south, so we begin there Severe line of thunderstorms rolling across into the Carolinas, and a tornado warning out right now for Charlotte, North Carolina. A dangerous situation there. You certainly want to be taking cover, and these storms roll all the way down into the Florida Panhandle. With the bad has come the good, though. 5 inches, nearly 5 inches of record-breaking rain in Knoxville. Some of that getting into the fire zone, helping that situation for sure. Tomorrow morning, the heavier rain moves into the northeast, some wintry precip in through Maine and heavy rain through Boston. By tomorrow afternoon, it all moves offshore, and finally, we get into some quiet weather, at least for 2 days. That'll be good. David?
Rob Marciano, thanks as always. We also have new reporting tonight after that deadly plane crash, the horrific scene, that team celebrating a Cinderella season, then almost every one of them dying on that flight. The charter flight going down in bad weather in Colombia with that Brazilian soccer team on board. This video from their journey before that flight. And tonight we are now hearing recordings of the pilot's desperate words in the final moments. Here's ABC's David Curley.
Tonight, the clues to this crash that killed 71, including that Brazilian soccer team, come from the last words of the pilots. Their short-haul jet had flown nearly 1,900 miles, right at its maximum range, but it was put into a holding pattern above Medellin. The pilots radio the tower asking for priority landing. We're having a fuel problem. A little more than 7 minutes later, the pilot calls out, total failure, electric, total, and fuel. The jet is now apparently gliding on battery power.
Then they didn't have any navigation system, so they had no way to point themselves at the airport. They had no way to intercept a safe glide path. Mountains all around, very hilly.
The pilots desperately calling out for directions, vectors. A minute later, the final plea for help. While investigators examine the black boxes, an outpouring of grief and love for the Cinderella soccer team from Brazil, which was headed to its first finals tournament ever. 3 of the players survived, and so did 2 crew members. One told a South American sports network he tucked luggage between his legs, assumed the fetal position, and says that is the reason he survived.
Just incredible. And David Curley, who covers aviation. David, let's go back to the fuel question for just a moment. All passenger jets are supposed to fly with plenty in reserve, as you've reported before. So how did this happen?
It's unknown. How did these pilots not plan to have 45 minutes of extra fuel? Bringing in that holding pattern could have caused a problem, but this will be a focus of the investigation, David.
David Curley with us again tonight. Next this evening, to an explosive case that made national headlines tonight, the DA in Charlotte has now revealed there will be no charges in the police shooting of Keith Lamont Scott. Prosecutors concluding the officers acted lawfully. ABC's Eva Pilgrim with their reason why.
Don't you do it! Tonight, no charges for that officer who fired the fatal shot, sparking days of unrest in Charlotte.
It is my opinion that Officer Benson acted lawfully when he shot Mr. Scott.
The district attorney today saying all credible evidence uncovered points to Scott being armed, something Scott's family had disputed at the shooting scene. His wife saying he wasn't armed.
He doesn't have a gun.
The DA now presenting this radio call before the shooting.
There was a guy that was parked next to us that was rolling the joint, had a gun.
And releasing this surveillance video from a nearby 7-Eleven right before the shooting, showing Mr. Scott with a bulge around his right ankle. In previously released police video, his pant leg pulled up, an empty holster revealed. But in that police video, you can never clearly see Scott holding the weapon, sparking the controversy. Now the DA concluding Scott failed to comply with commands to drop his gun. The family disagreeing, asking why a father waiting to pick up his kid ended up dead.
We still have real questions about the decisions that were made that day in terms of how they confronted Keith and whether they used appropriate de-escalation techniques to end this situation in a way that didn't result in the loss of Keith's life.
David, the family says it's still not clear if Scott was holding a gun, and they are profoundly disappointed with the DA's decision not to press charges. They are now considering pursuing a civil case. David?
Eva Pilgrim, thank you. We turn next tonight to President-elect Donald Trump and that dinner with Mitt Romney, their second very public meeting. So is Mitt Romney going to get the job as Secretary of State, or is this just a very public effort before he's passed over? Also tonight, we've learned Sarah Palin could be up for a major role. ABC's David Wright on that, and Mr. Trump's new promise to separate his business from the White House.
Tonight, Donald Trump is vowing to quit the Trump Organization in order to fully focus on running the country. Trump tweeted today the presidency is a far more important task. That sounds more like the Donald Trump from the campaign trail.
If I become president, I couldn't care less about my company. It's peanuts.
Recently, he suggested he could do both, telling the New York Times the president can't have a conflict of interest.
Nothing is written. In other words, in theory, I could be president of the United States and run my business 100%.
Since then, he's been besieged by headlines raising concerns about his ongoing business deals. Today, Trump tweeted, "While I'm not mandated to do this under the law, I feel it is visually important as president to in no way have a conflict of interest." He now says he is leaving his business in total, promising details in a press conference with his kids next month. But having his children take over the business may not be enough to avoid conflicts of interest. One piece of America's business Trump claims to have already accomplished: keeping close to 1,000 jobs at this carrier factory in Indianapolis. Workers were outraged when company officials first outlined their plans.
To move production from our facility in Indianapolis to Monterrey, Mexico.
Candidate Trump threatened to call the CEO personally.
It's not presidential for the President of the United States to call up the head of carrier. Hello, this is the president. But I don't care. It's so much fun for me. I love doing it.
President-elect Trump did call and worked out some sort of deal. The details still unclear, but the workers are thrilled.
This is a victory for us little people.
Trump plans to celebrate with them tomorrow. The president-elect is not yet ready to celebrate his choice of Secretary of State. Last night, a second audition for Mitt Romney over frog's legs at a fancy restaurant at one of Trump's hotels.
He did something I tried to do and was unsuccessful in accomplishing. He won the general elections.
Never mind what Romney said back in the primaries.
Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud.
But even after these two very public getting-to-know-you sessions, no deal yet.
All right, we'll wait and see. In the meantime, David Wright joins us live from Trump Tower. And David, we're learning that Sarah Palin is now under consideration for a spot in the Trump cabinet.
She could be our next Secretary of Veterans Affairs, David. Palin has not yet been here to Trump Tower for a meeting, but the two obviously know each other well. And she said that she would love to use the megaphone she's been given to help veterans. David?
David Wright, thank you. Outgoing CIA Director John Brennan with some strong advice for the president-elect about one of his campaign promises involving Iran, telling the BBC it would be, quote, disastrous to pull the plug on the nuclear deal with Iran because he says it would empower Tehran's hardliners and trigger a nuclear arms race in the region. Brennan also warning Mr. Trump to be wary of Russia's promises. Next tonight, back here at home, into an exclusive interview right here on ABC with the husband of that California woman, a mother who vanished while jogging, found by the side of the road weeks later. ABC's Matt Gutman tonight with the husband, now describing what happened to his wife.
Tonight, Sherry Papini's husband, Keith, is speaking out, sitting down for an exclusive interview with 2020, in chilling detail describing aspects of his wife's captivity.
She was bound. She had a a chain around her waist. That is correct. She had a bag over her head. That is correct. Her left hand was in the vehicle chained to something. When she was...
Make sure she didn't jump out of the car.
Yeah, she was chained anytime she was in a vehicle. They opened the door. She doesn't know because she had a bag over her head. They cut something to free her restraint that was holding her into the vehicle, and then kind of pushed her out of the vehicle.
Until now, police only giving this description of her abductors: two Hispanic women armed with a gun driving a dark SUV. But today, after another round of interviews with Sherry Papini, the sheriff revealing new details about those suspects.
Suspect number one was the younger of the two suspects. She had long, curly hair. She had a thick accent. She had pierced ears. Suspect number two, she had straight black hair with some graying color. She had thick eyebrows.
Police artists now working on a composite sketch.
She was held against her will and was isolated. And at times, Sherry's head was covered.
David, in the 4 hours I spent with Keith Papini, he revealed details about Sherry's abduction, but also about the harrowing moments just after her release. But he expressed most emotion about seeing her for the first time after 22 days. David.
Matt Government, our thanks to you tonight, and much more of Matt's exclusive interview with Keith Papini on a special edition of ABC News' 2020. That's this Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. Matt will take us step by step through this ordeal. In the meantime, there is still much more ahead on World News Tonight this Wednesday. The massive home explosion going up in flames. The mother of three, the family dog, crawling out from the debris. Firefighters now investigating the cause, and early word tonight. Also, new developments in the urgent manhunt for two escaped prisoners. The dramatic capture of one of them, and where police are still searching tonight. And you have to see this. The thief stealing a pot of gold right out of an armored truck. You heard me right. The container so heavy he had to keep putting it down. The reward tonight to find the gold, now worth more than $1.5 million. We'll be right back.
My name is Pam. I'm 51 years old. When I was diagnosed with pneumococcal pneumonia, it was huge for everybody. She just started to decline rapidly. I was